John Denver is kind of viewed. I don't think this, but this is how I think he's viewed, at least in pop culture currently. John Denver is kind of seen as like the Full House of music, where it was like that thing that
It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Big movie too. Kingsman: The Golden Circle comes 2 years after Kingsman: The Secret Service, which was kind of a sleeper hit. Did either of you guys see that movie in theaters?
Yes, I did.
You both did see it. That's incredible, because I'll tell you right now, just to preface everything before we get into the reviews, I'll have either one of you summarize the plot, because I like when other people talk. Believe it or not, I actually do. But Kingsman, the thing with Kingsman was I've never been so happy to be wrong about the original, because I thought the original, regardless of quality, I thought the original was going to be a bomb. I really did.
I think a lot of people did.
I thought it was. I looked at it and I'm like, this looks like a really creative original movie. A little bit of Bond influence there. Looks like it ain't going to make any money. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. I thought that this thing's going to be one of those great $90 million, $100 million movies. Doesn't make anything.
Another thing, too, is like Matthew Vaughn made Kick-Ass, which was written, I think, by the same author that wrote the comic series for Kingsman. So I just literally thought, okay, once again, this is barely going to get any attention and barely make any money.
Yes, and I thought so too. And I really thought that, like, you know, I didn't know if Matthew Vaughn had pushed from the X-Men franchise or Kick-Ass. I really didn't know if he had name recognition. And then it just blew me away. It came out, like you said last week, Joe, the same weekend as 50 Shades of Grey. So it served as really good counter-programming in February of 15. And I loved it. I thought the original was a great film. I thought it had a lot of good merit. I thought it had a lot of good energy. I thought it was something a little bit unique and new without being too derivative of Bond. Kingsman: The Golden Circle, who's going to sum up the plot? Dominic, Joe, who wants to take on explaining the new sequel?
You got it?
Yeah, I'll take it. Why not?
Take it, my friend.
All right, so Kingsman 2 basically picks off maybe a year after the first events of the movie.
Yeah, just about. I don't think they ever really establish it too much. Yeah.
Basically, what happens here is that the entire Kingsman Secret Service gets attacked by some terrorist force, I guess, basically.
This is a non-spoiler review, but a lot of this we'll just reveal from the trailers.
Yeah. And so Eggsy and Mark Strong, who is Merlin?
Yes.
Merlin. They gotta basically find out who attacked them, and also regroup with their cousins in America known as the Statesmen. And basically, they're just trying to find out who attacked them, why were they targeted, and have to save the world once again from a dangerous drug.
Yes.
That's going to kill millions of people.
And Kingsman is like a tailor. It's a tailor, like, suit store, like clothing shop that it masquerades as that to cover up for the secret agency stuff.
Which I should just say is a very bad idea, to have your secret organization the same name as your public profile.
It's true. It's very true.
I mean, the Statesmen do the same
thing, because the Statesman is a distillery. The Statesman is a distillery, whiskey and stuff like that. And the great thing is too is the Statesman, which I was hoping would be a little bit more in the film. I really was. They're very cool in their own right. There's Agent Tequila, played by Channing Tatum, who unfortunately spends most of the movie cryogenically frozen. There's Agent Champagne, who runs the Statesman. He's played by Jeff Bridges. There is Agent Ginger Ale, who's played by Halle Berry. And then there is the antagonistic forces this time come from a woman named Poppy Adams, played wonderfully by Julianne Moore, who's got the performance of the film, in my opinion. She's operating a drug cartel in the uncharted regions of Cambodia, living in like a 1980s-esque paradise that's recreated diner, movie theater.
I should say, the 1980s take on the 50s.
Indeed, yes. It's true. It's true, because the diner's got like that kind of like 1950s-style diner that was like recreated in the 80s.
It's got robots, but like in that 50s garb.
Yes, indeed. You almost
look like
it almost reminds me.
Yeah, a little bit.
It almost reminds me like
it doesn't help that there's like trees and like broken down everything else. Sorry.
No worries. It reminded me a little bit of like you said, Fallout. Because from what I know, it reminded me kind of like how Cuba is like pictured.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Yes,
like
only not as glossy.
No, not nearly as glossy.
All rusted.
You know, but like doesn't it remind you kind of like the pictures of Cuba, where it's got like all old-fashioned cars, all old-fashioned infrastructure? That's what it really reminds me.
Only that's not by choice. They can't afford anything else.
No, exactly. No, we're talking about the country. We're not talking about a movie. But indeed. But I'll let you guys give your opinions on this. So, Joe, kind of surmise what you thought about Kingsman: Golden Circle, your expectations going into it, and what you emerged thinking about it as a whole.
Okay, well, going into it, I mean, from the trailer, I was a little bit worried because there's a lot of sequelitis in this trailer. They're bringing back a dead character. They lost their home base, and then they have like this whole new like ally force, so they're bringing a lot of cast members in. There's just a lot of things that just seem like, okay, if you were to make a sequel and needed just to make a quick buck, this is the stuff you would do. And it also just seemed like it was going to be the same movie just from the trailers, kind of. Mm-hmm. So going into it, I was just hoping, well, could it at least be as fun as the first one was? And just give me that unexpected surprise. And for the most part, it did, but I was a little disappointed with the sequel. Mm-hmm. I thought, if you look at the poster for this movie, most of the cast on there is not in this movie that long, like Steve said earlier. The guy that plays Agent
Tequila? Yeah, Channing Tatum.
Yeah, like you said, he's barely in it, and he's replaced by another guy.
Pedro Pascal, who's Agent Whiskey.
Isn't he in Narcos?
He's in Narcos, which I've never watched, but yes, he is in Narcos.
No, he's I think he's like an FBI agent or something on Narcos.
Which is like, oh, is he an agent? Oh, you're right. He is. I thought it was Pablo Escobar.
Javier Pena.
I'm kidding. Okay, no,
in Narcos.
He's like he's a DEA agent, so the complete opposite of Escobar. Continue, sorry.
No, yeah, no problem. Basically, like he replaces Channing Tatum, and he's not even mentioned on the poster at all.
No,
or, like
he's
in
not.
the trailers, like you see him, but he's not even mentioned.
He couldn't.
So I thought it was going to be a
movie,
very minor role since he's only really on TV shows. Basically, other than that, the action I thought was either good to okay at best. I thought the opening scene was really fun, that car chase at the beginning, and I thought the last action scene was actually kind of fun with like them attacking basically the base. I was a big fan of Colin Firth's character in the first one. And even though that he returns in this movie, once again, he's not in it that much. And when he's in it, most of the time, he's not doing what you really like seeing him in the first one.
Because he's still kind of like hazy. He's in it. I would say he's in it.
Yeah,
he's in it quite a bit. But
they give a reason why, but it was just kind of like, oh, I wish I got to see more time with this character. Mark Strong, I thought, was fantastic in this movie. And you said Julianne Moore was good as a villain. I thought she was a great villain as well.
Mm-hmm. I think she's easily the standout.
Yeah, basically. I was a little disappointed with, like you said earlier, the Statesmen are not in it that much, and there's not really anything that stands out for them from the Kingsmen, which I kind of hoping there was going to be. They kind of just seem like literally the same agencies, just copy and paste, but it's just like, oh, we'll change this to something that's American. I was kind of hoping maybe having more of a distinct personality than just Southern accents and name your guys after alcohol.
Yeah, and that cut and paste is kind of part of the joke, and I was having fun with that too.
I guess so, yeah.
But at the same time, you touched on it, I think, wonderfully. It's sequelitis is going to be the key word for this whole discussion, I think, because there's a huge bait and switch in this movie, and not in a good way, I think, in terms of character development or lack thereof, which is to me the shining flaw of this movie, which is its lack of character development. In my opinion, Colin Firth should not have been in this movie at all.
I agree.
No, I agree.
I think they'd spend, even though we didn't have that much time with him, what critical time we did have, because how long is this movie? 2
hours and like 30 minutes.
And 21 minutes.
Yeah, so you can't push this any more than it already is without wasting everyone's time. But with Colin Firth, they spent all that time. They could have been developing Tequila, or I should say Channing Tatum. They could have been developing Halle Berry.
Yes.
Jeff Bridges, who appears in like 4 scenes, each one like less than 2 minutes, I think, total.
No,
his total screen time is, I think, less than another character who is woefully wasted in like the opening, opening scene as well. There's a lot of wasted characters here, and even some characters who we get to see throughout the movie. There's some kind of sacrifices and wasted, like, again, just wasted potential for so many things here. Even Poppy Adams, Julianne Moore, I think she was great in this movie as well. But the thing is, I couldn't fall in love with her because I didn't have time to. Like, I only got quick snapshots. Like, oh, okay, that was all the time we had. If only you could like make this joke a little bit more, or have more of that character develop. I don't know.
As much as I liked her character too, the one thing I love about the first Kingsman is that Samuel Jackson plays like against the type of a villain, like very hard, where he's like afraid of violence and blood. And then Julianne Moore is obviously not that in this movie. And you see it, she's like the complete opposite. And I kind of just miss like having like that kind of villain in a Kingsman movie. I really like what Samuel Jackson brought, but I still think Julianne Moore did a good job. I thought Samuel Jackson was a way better villain though.
Yeah.
See, overall, with my thoughts on the movie, too, I agree with quite a few points you're bringing up. I think I liked it better than both of you, though. I really do. There are a couple things that are more evident in this sequel. For one, I think that there is a little bit of quote what I bill as quote unquote superhero syndrome with this movie, and it's how I describe that is it's like the disassociation one begins to feel watching superhuman characters zip through the air, avoiding danger or death. And that robs the situation or the film from the concern of the character's well-being. You guys get what I'm saying? And that kind of happens here, I think, is that you never feel that the Kingsmen are in any real danger. They always feel like video game characters, and that there's always some sort of weapon they can equip, a knife in their shoe, something under their belt, quite literally, that gets them out of any sort of predicament. You never feel like they're truly in danger. Like, I can't believe we haven't brought him up yet. You know who I was fearing for in the movie was Elton John. That's who I was fearing for.
I didn't want to mention him quite yet, but yeah,
He is
Elton
on the
John.
poster.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I saw it on there. I was like, okay, so we could talk about that.
Elton John has a cameo in this movie, and it's a cameo that you think is like, oh, okay, that was the cameo, cool, and then it just grows and grows and grows, and it just becomes hilarious the whole time.
He's a great sport.
That's to me that was the standout of the whole movie.
I didn't like it that much, honestly.
I liked it. I thought it was fun. Now, the other thing that it does, too, is that it puts, like you said, too, this movie's 2 hours and 21 minutes, so it's long, okay? And there's a lot in this movie. And even at that length of time, it still manages to feel underdeveloped in critical areas. Like we're talking about the Statesman coming into the mix too. But I will say the one thing that you guys looked over, and this is where I'm going to compare this to War for the Planet of the Apes here. I know, Dom, you saw it. Joe, did you see War for the Planet of the Apes? Okay, so you might understand what I'm talking about here. I don't consider these films too dissimilar, and you know why? Is because Matthew Vaughn, kind of like in War for the Planet of the Apes too, the people behind War for the Planet of the Apes. Matthew Vaughn now, with several movies under his belt, the Kingsman movies being the most pertinent to this, Vaughn knows how to make the most out of his budgets. Same with the special effects crew. This looks like a $200 million movie with the lights, the effects, the recreated sets, the spectacle, and so on and so forth. And the film is only, I say only, but still relative to this movie, was a $104 million budget. So, I mean, this is a fairly inexpensive movie given what all that it does, all that it creates. And I think Vaughn doesn't get enough credit for having the ability to kind of create this world. Like War for the Planet of the Apes too. That was a gorgeous looking movie, conservatively employed its $150 million price tag. And I think that Kingsman: The Golden Circle has a lot of similar beats. There's not like really one moment where you could guess where it's like, okay, well, like 40 million went to this scene. That's why this movie's so expensive, because this scene cost so much money. I think it's spread out very well, and it looks very good as a result.
It's got that kind of glossy CGI where you can tell it's fake. Unlike War for the Planet of the Apes, where it's like, wow, holy crap, these monkeys look real.
Which should win for best special effects.
I was about to say, if that doesn't, I don't know what else could beat it, honestly. But Kingsman has that, as I said, glossy CGI where it's like, okay, this is obvious. This is just ridiculous, which is what this whole movie is, ridiculous and over the top, and I don't mind that at all. I think
that's kind of what the first one was too.
Exactly, and I like that. But even the first one, however, and this is kind of a flaw, again, touching on that flaw of the second movie, even the first one, it didn't have that superhero syndrome where, they were safe the whole time. No. Because Colin Firth, kind of a spoiler for the first movie, but it's spoiled in the trailer for the second. Colin Firth dies. He's shot in the head in the first movie, which is whoa, that's awesome. That the fact that they actually did this, and I thought that was a nice conclusion to his arc in the first movie, but I don't know. But
no, I agree.
And you said it best too. You said it best too, Dom. Was that you said like this movie? It does a lot. It spends a lot of time, going through the motions with Colin Firth's character again, getting him reacclimated and everything. A lot of the time is spent on that character, when it could be spent on giving Halle Berry more screen time, giving Channing Tatum a reason to exist, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of people that, like, it seems like they flew in for lunch. Yeah. You know what I mean? For this movie. Like they flew in
Channing Tatum.
For a lunch and to show and to have a scene with. You know what I mean? That really, it's what it feels like.
Elton John had more screen time than Jeff Bridges and Channing Tatum, I think. Right.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, and that's I think a big deterrent here. That's what I think is the biggest deterrent here is the cast doesn't feel as well utilized as you'd hope.
Such a way. That's what's frustrating about this movie for me. I'm not. It's not a horrible movie. It's not an awful movie. I don't hate it.
Again, I still think I liked it better than you guys. Been both.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's horrible either.
I had a good time.
I think it's like you can go and still have fun with this. It's
even
just
if
for
you
me,
haven't
I was just a little disappointed. That doesn't mean I think it's bad though.
No, not at all. I took Chelsea, my girlfriend, to see it.
How'd
and
she respond? Yeah.
She loved it, and she did not see the first one.
Okay.
She didn't see the first one, which is, I mean,
which might make a bit of sense. Too.
yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my kind of issue with my issue with it is that I'm invested in these characters and I'm invested in this plot and this development. Oh, what's next for Eggsy here in the Kingsman adventures? But at the same time, that's not my problem. That's my expectation as someone who has given you time and money, and my emotional investment into this. It's like
Absolutely.
It's almost like they're punishing me for paying attention, in terms of their use of character.
I like how you said that. That's a good way to at least segue into ensemble cast. This is kind of what we were talking about going into the break. Ensemble cast not well utilized. Agree or disagree, gentlemen?
Agreed.
Yep.
Absolutely agree. I mean, there's a lot of great potential for performances in this film that did not live up to at least what we thought. You guys want to talk more about that?
Yeah. Who else is wasted in this movie?
Well, okay, we could talk about some of the returning characters like Roxy.
Yeah, Roxy. I forgot her real name. But you were saying about her in the first movie. She was awesome.
Yeah, in the first movie. Okay, so in the first movie, once again, spoilers if you haven't seen the first movie. Basically, her and Eggsy are like the last two to complete the Kingsman test, basically, to determine whether or not you could be a Kingsman. And the final test was you have to shoot a dog you've been basically taking care of for like the entire training. And Eggsy can't do it, and he turns around and he fails. And Roxy passes the test. She actually shoots at the dog, but it turns out to be a blank. And in that final movie, like, the thing I always found funny about this was when Eggsy comes back to help them, they send Eggsy on the suicide mission to go save the world. And for Roxy, who passed all the tests and did something Eggsy couldn't do, they just tie her to a balloon, send her up to space just to press a button and shoot a missile. Like, okay, are you serious? And I was like, all right, maybe she'll be utilized more in the sequel.
Yeah.
And she's not. Not at all.
No. And again, in the first movie, there was a clear focus that this is about Eggsy. Like this father and son relationship with Eggsy and Harry, right? Taylor Egerton and Colin Firth. And even in that arc, Harry has to die because he served his purpose, and Eggsy has, the focus is on him. So maybe if they tie Roxy to a balloon and send her off into space, okay, fine. Maybe I get that. That's cool.
Or she's on a different mission or something.
Exactly. Sure. But in the second movie, she explodes before she has...
It's like that missile she shot actually turned around and just came back and blew her up, basically.
This is in the first 5 minutes, I should say. And she really... it's not much of a spoiler because she's barely a character, barely utilized at all.
And the best part is you see her like roll out of the way and you're like, okay, she might have lived. It wasn't until like we got to the final action scene where I was like, oh yeah, she's not coming back. She's gone.
No, and it is surprising. It's a little bit jarring too, especially when you consider the fact that, like, again, there's a lot of characters in here, and Dominic brought this up before we went to break too. Coming into a movie like this, especially if you were invested in the Secret Service, like I think we all were. We were all very invested in it. It's one of those things where you come back and you're like, okay, I want to see the depth of Eggsy's story continue. I want to have more time spent with Merlin. I want more of a bond this time around too. So, and if you're not going to give me that, then you see. Okay, well, we got a laundry list of new characters here. That's pretty cool, at least. You know what I mean? We got a ton of new characters as well. That sounds pretty good. Okay, but then you see we've got aside from Elton John, we got Channing Tatum, we got Jeff Bridges, Pedro Pascal is kind of the exception on this one, and Julianne Moore, all of whom not totally well utilized here. You know what I mean? Channing Tatum is a real waste. I've said it before. Channing Tatum is a real waste.
He was busy filming Logan Lucky.
I think so. That's not even a joke. That could very well have been the case. Now, before we move forward, I just want to mention this because Dominic, I actually texted you this right after I got out of Kingsman. Okay, and see if you catch this too, Joe. I'll tell you right now. This is now the fourth. Count them. Fifth.
List them off, and I'll add one more.
The fourth movie this year that has utilized John Denver's music and likeness. We've had 4. We've had Alien Covenant. We've had Oakjaw. We've had Logan Lucky, and we've had Kingsman: The Golden Circle. What's the 5th one?
Was it Free Fire?
Free Fire?
Did Fast Fire or something?
Free Fire, yeah.
Did that have John Denver in it?
That had Steelers Wheel in it. I do not recall John Denver
Okay.
immediately. I will fact check that in a moment.
I have heard that people have been saying online, like, oh yeah, free that movie Free Fire had it too.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Like I wasn't paying because that was before even Alien Covenant came out. So that could have very well have been in there. I'm gonna try.
It was a
fact
small like box office bomb, so no one really paid attention.
I
anyway.
saw it actually.
In fact, that's maybe the only reason why anyone's talking about Free Fire is because of John Denver.
You know what? Actually, it is true. There is a scene with Annie's song in John.
There you go. So
there you go.
So
That's
it's not
5 movies now.
It's not Country Roads, but it is John Denver.
That's fine. No, and Okja had Annie's song. Okja had Annie's song. That's 5 movies this year that have had John Denver's likeness. I said it before. I said it in my review. Thrice is an incident. 4 and now 5 times is a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean that's crazy. I love John Denver. I put John Denver in every movie.
I'm the same way. I'm not tired of this
Neither
at
am
all.
I
I could hear Country Roads 100 million times and I'll never get tired of it.
You know, and that, I'll be honest.
Personally.
That Country Road's not even my favorite John Denver song, but I mean at the same
Well,
time.
apparently to Hollywood it is.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Annie's song comes in a close second. I mean, I remember going back. Final Destination, the first Final Destination, used Rocky Mountain High, which is my favorite John Denver song.
That's a good movie. That's a good. That's
a great
I'm
song.
sure it is a good movie, but it's a great song.
That is a great. I love that song. But
Yeah, and you know, it's also funny.
I just couldn't believe that.
It's also funny that Matthew Vaughn said in an interview, like, people have been wondering, like, why is John Denver such a thing now? It's like, yeah, I wrote this 2.5 years ago, Kingsman. I wrote Kingsman 2.5 years ago, and I did, like, that was not part of any incident or whatever. I just liked the song.
And I always said John Denver, and I hate to make this comparison. I'll probably regret this in the morning, but I'm going to say this. John Denver is kind of viewed. I don't think this, but this is how I think he's viewed, at least in pop culture currently. John Denver is kind of seen as like the Full House of music, where it was like
What?
that thing that we. No, I'll even get this. It's that thing that we liked many years ago, and now we kind of like to hate or like to pretend that we never liked it. I think so. I think so.
Everyone's always loved John Denver. Maybe forgot about him, but never hated him.
I don't think they forgot about him. I think that John Denver is kind of.
There's some Hollywood producer out there that's totally disagreeing with you right now.
No, it's not, but the thing is, what I'm saying is like John Denver's one of those like kind of viewed now as like one of those tacky singers that's very sentimental in a way, very like textbook songwriting. There's people that think this way, just like I think Full House is crap television.
Well, they're stupid, but I can name like I could name like so many other. I can't right now, I bet, but I'm sure there are plenty of other sappier, like way more commercial guitar singer-songwriters that are way more overused than, or like, you know, overplayed than John Denver.
Maybe I'm reaching. All I know is that when I asked for a John Denver compilation CD when I was 12 years old from my aunt, I still hear about it at Christmas. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe it's something to do with the Pulaskis over here. But anyway, though, so Kingsman, The Golden Circle overall, though, I want to keep talking about this because I think there is a lot to talk about with this movie. I really do. I think there's a lot in this movie. Again, it's 2.5 hours long. It's lengthy. And I would say, too, that it's one of those kind of events too that like I think in a lot of ways it's a blast, and I think that for a lot of fans for the original movie that it's going to be hard for them to disagree with that in a lot of ways because there are some great action set pieces here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, the ending is a lot of fun. You know what I mean? The ending is a lot of fun, and I think too. And I'm sorry I haven't mentioned this yet. I surprisingly haven't, but I also think even though it's pretty light, I'm not going to go over here and pretend and saying okay, it's very deep. It's actually there's a lot of value in this. No,
they tried to make it deep with like a political message, but that completely fell flat for me.
It didn't fall flat for me. I noticed it and I liked it too. There's a good kind of commentary on like the war on drugs and like because the president of the United States is played by Bruce Greenwood in the film. Because that's kind of the thing is that like Julianne Moore's character in the film makes this sort of synthetic drug and then she ships it out to she ships it out overseas then because she's in Cambodia. She ships it out to the United States and then like it's kind of like laced, marijuana and all this other business.
Marijuana.
Yeah, indeed. I try to say it like that to make it like
devil's lettuce.
The reefer.
So smoking the reefus. But anyway, so there's that though. There's that kind of subplot with it, and then it kind of turns into like the war of drugs based on Bruce Greenwood, who plays the president. His response to the epidemic.
Sure.
Which is like a psychopath's response to the epidemic.
It's not far off in this kind of landscape we're living in nowadays. I hate to say it.
Go back to the election in 1980 with Ronald Reagan. You get something very similar.
Absolutely, definitely. But But no, I that did work for me, okay? It's light, and again, there's so much in this movie, too. This almost felt like it was trying to start a Kingsman mini-series. You know what I mean? With the way that it...
Sequelitis.
I mean, because, I mean, and maybe even trying to get the third one in here, too, because, I mean, you got the States.
They actually did confirm a third one.
I know, but I mean, what I'm saying is, too, is like you're trying to get the third one in here, too, it seems like, just how much stuff you're putting in here. You're putting in the Statesman, you're putting in the Colin Firth subplot, too. You got Julianne Moore's villain, you got the drug thing.
You got our whole organization's just been destroyed and we have to build from the bottom up plot.
Indeed, there's a lot in here, and even going back to Matthew Vaughn, I just read this a few hours ago too. Matthew Vaughn even mentioned too. He said, "I had a hell of a time trying to write this thing because again, I don't think he expected this movie to like do what it did. Maybe he expected it to be a hit, but he didn't expect. I don't think he was expecting to sit down for a sequel. I don't think so. And
you
I
know
think
what
it's
else
evident
also
here.
probably made it like a hard time for him to write is that he had that comic book to base off of for the first one. There is no source material for this second one at all, and we all know Matthew Vaughn hates doing sequels. So
I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. I knew it was based on a source material, but there was no. This isn't based on a pre-existing story.
No,
you know. So okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense too. But I still think there is merit in this sequel. I think that there is a lot. There is some pretty good stuff here. There really is. In terms of a movie that gives you what you want, maybe a little bit too much of it. There's still a little bit of good surprise in here. There's still a retained likability, too, I think, with the characters. I think Mark Strong really steps up here. And he kind of has to with Colin Firth's like not being totally there. Mark Strong, who still looks like the best like Stanley Tucci clone ever.
You even texted me like, "Oh yeah, Stanley Tucci is in this movie."
I
jokingly.
did say that because I was thinking of that. I had it on the mind, and I typed thinking Mark Strong typed Stanley Tucci.
You knew it wasn't Stanley Tucci, and I knew it wasn't Stanley Tucci. But when you texted me Stanley Tucci, I knew exactly who you were talking about.
And, again, I just was thinking of that because I was thinking that in the movie. Like I didn't even remember thinking about it during the first film, but I'm sitting in the movie theater watching Golden Circle. I'm thinking like, man, Mark Strong does a hell of a Stanley Tucci. And then when I got out of there, man, I messaged you and I'm like, and I look back, I'm like, ah, Jesus, should be more professional than this. Mm-hmm. But Mark Strong does step up here playing Merlin. I think he's good. I think he's very good here. I like Taron Egerton too, and I think Julianne Moore really does steal the show, especially given the fact that the Statesmen do not get a lot of screen time.
I don't know. Do you think the Golden Circle got enough exposure in the plot? I don't know.
I feel outside of the first 20 minutes,
I would have liked to actually spend more time there a little bit because, like you said, the set for that area is actually really cool looking, and I would love to get to know Julianne Moore like we did with Samuel Jackson. There's a lot of time you spend in that first movie with Samuel Jackson, and you really get to know him very well and get to know his henchmen. In this one, it's like you have a henchman from the first movie that comes back, and then you don't get enough time with both him and Julianne Moore.
Yeah, I was about to say, how many scenes did they share together? Just one.
I think just one, yeah. And it's when they introduce Ellen John into the movie. There's more scenes with Ellen John than the henchman and Julianne Moore.
It's very true.
Hey, I like Elton John in this movie, so I'm not gonna complain there.
Oh, no, neither am I. And I think he's pretty cool here, too. And Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting is used really well, you know what I mean, in the film. But we can kind of give our wrap-up ratings on this, you think, or kind of final thoughts. I'm going to start with you, Dominic.
Don't start with me.
I'll give it start with you. Well, because it's your first time back in quite a while. So give your kind of overall thoughts on Kingsman, The Golden Circle, and your rating.
Overall thoughts, well, the action was exciting, and there were some solid jokes. However, the movie set up so many things that I would have loved to have indulged in and enjoy, but it didn't deliver. It half-baked so many things like Channing Tatum or the Statesman overall. Honestly, the Statesman and other characters returning from the first movie, and all of it because it was a lot of time, in my opinion, was wasted on Colin Firth's character, which is obviously the writer's fault, not Colin Firth himself. But it just kind of left as someone who was invested and wanted to see the like a really fulfilling continuing adventures of the Kingsman. It kind of left me with a kind of a disappointment and sour taste in my mouth. But I can't deny that the action is over the top and freaking awesome. So I guess I'll give it a 2 stars out of 4.
2 stars out of 4.
Yeah.
No special rating for this?
No special. Oh, do you want me to do the ratings for this?
Do a special rating.
Okay, I'll give it. Let's see.
Wait for a joke because you don't know this.
I'll give it 3.5 man burgers out of Out of 17. out of 17 empty plates.
Oh, indeed. Good Lord.
The math doesn't add up there, man.
It's not supposed to.
No, that's exactly right. Believe me.
There's no FDA regulations on man burgers.
It's supposed to leave you more confused than whether or not what was in that Statesman whiskey was it actually like decent like Scotch, or was it actually like Jack Daniels? The world may never know. Joe, let me hear your thoughts. Too.
Okay, Dom, you basically just hit most of the points.
Yeah.
Like I was just gonna say, I would just say, yeah, for a sequel, it felt like they were playing it safe and just did everything pretty average when it came to like introducing new characters, a new threat. Other than the action scenes, which were shot well, done well, choreographed well, the movie does look beautiful, like you said, for the budget that it has. It does look really great. Some of the returning characters, Taron Egerton and Mark Strong, I thought were fantastic in this movie. I especially loved Mark Strong the most, who I thought had my favorite scene near the end of the movie too. Other than that, other than being just a little disappointed, I still was enjoying when there was action on the screen, and still just like watching Mark Strong interact with Eggsy, or Taron Egerton, I should say, and even like Colin Firth, like trying to get back to Taron Egerton, like having them trying to reconnect. I thought was actually pretty interesting to watch, even though I wanted him to be what he was in that first movie, and I still felt like by the end I was like, yeah, we could have done this sequel without him, maybe. But I will give it maybe. Yeah, 2.5 stars, honestly. I still enjoyed it. I still think it could be fun for most people. But I did feel like the disappointment and the sequelitis a lot in this movie.
Yeah. Absolutely valid. Overall, with me, I did like it more than you guys. I think that there is more in common with this sequel. I think that Kingsman: The Golden Circle has more in common with 22 Jump Street than it does The Hangover Part 2. And the reason I reference those movies is because they're both raunchy comedies. They're ostensibly unrelated. But if you think about it, both 22 Jump Street and The Hangover Part 2 tried to get by doing almost the same thing as their predecessors. They really did. And only one succeeded, in my opinion, okay? 22 Jump Street. Now, with Kingsman: The Golden Circle, there is a little bit of a come-down period. And it's a come-down that, like, I noticed more. I don't know how you guys, I don't know if this was something like you guys immediately came out of it thinking like, okay, it disappointed me in these regards and stuff like that. This was a come down that took me a couple, maybe about an hour after seeing it that I really like, okay, because like after about an hour, I think like, what do I retain? If I think Kingsman: The Golden Circle, what are some things that I immediately think of? And it did lose me in that respect. There was some stuff that after I saw the movie, give it a little while, there were some stuff that had lost me, or stuff that was lost on me. So overall though, I still think the budget is used spectacularly. I think that Matthew Vaughn has a knack for taking smaller budgets than you'd expect for movies like this and really making them succeed. I think that. I also believe that there is a definite, still retains a likability, even though a lot of the actors, Channing Tatum, Halle Berry, Jeff Bridges, are not seen as much as you probably wanted them to be. I still think the film retains a huge likability factor, which is something that's essential, in my opinion, to Kingsman, the franchise. And I also believe that a lot of the commentary, as light as it is, still gives the movie an edge. There are issues, in my opinion, that does have the narrative is overstuffed. There's a lot of characters that do not get adequate screen time. So it's kind of a mixed bag. For, I think, almost every compliment I can give it a little bit of a trade-off. I still think it's worthy of a recommendation. I still don't think it's something that people should actively skip or avoid. I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I think it is uniformly solid in the most sense, but there are some come down factors typical for a movie that we would say bears sequelitis. You know.
If I had to recommend a movie, I would recommend the first Kingsman, which
Sure.
I would have rated, I think, 3.5 out
That's
of
what
4.
I gave it.
I would give it the same rating, honestly.
That's what I gave it.
That blew me out of the water, like especially because it was as you said, sleeper hit.
And could it also have been too? And we'll kind of use this to kind of maybe conclude the hour though. Could it have also been? Maybe I'm reaching with this, like my John Denver Full House comparison. Could it also have been that we went into Kingsman, not the Secret Service, not really knowing what to expect, or kind of having modest
that is
expectations?
like totally a possibility.
Yeah. Could it have been that we just thought that like, okay, this movie has a big budget, it looked pretty slick, kind of has a Bond influent feel. Yeah. We weren't expecting, I know I wasn't expecting a lot. We went into it and then came out really surprised. So could Golden Circle have repercussions because Secret Service was so good and we expected more? So my question, though, just to kind of end things off, though, do you think Kingsman: The Golden Circle was hindered because we actually came into it expecting more from it, and we might have come into the Secret Service expecting less because the property was was unknown to most of us.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there, because when I saw the first trailer for the Kingsman movie, I was like, okay, this is going to be like some action parody movie. It's got Colin Firth, though. I guess I'll go check it out. And then what I saw was it is a parody of like spy films, and it is an action film, but it also adds something, I think, to that genre of its own. I think it does something like that creates its own identity rather than just being a parody of like, a Bond film or something. And then going into the second one, yeah, I kind of went in with like, I really want what you guys brought with that first one. Honestly, walking out of the second one, I said to myself, I'm like, this is kind of what I was expecting that first one to be when I first saw those trailers. And it's kind of disappointing to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So I think expectations did kind of hinder this in a big way.
It still has that Kingsman charm.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's just
That
kind
English
of
charm.
Yeah, that English charm, exactly. But it's just kind of a messy movie. You said overstuffed, which I think is the perfect adjective. It's an overstuffed script and a messy script. Again, in that first one, you can so clearly see it's about the growth and Colin Firth directing him and all that stuff. But then in the second movie, what could you say the overall arc of the movie is?
Drugs are bad.
Indeed.
I guess so.
Indeed. Drugs are bad. Beware of Julianne Moore in a gorgeous diner, which looks like a refurbished Firebird.
All Americans have Southern accents.
Shelby
Yes.
Southern accents. True. That's another catch too.